sure the thing does it fit? Did you? Oh, nice, nailed it. Definitely, that's what I set up for, and did not at all try that at all. Yep. I heard me.
I've now
I heard-
muted the YouTube because I've got
Bam, there
like a
we go.
4-second
We
delay.
are live.
Hmm.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop.
It happened.
It happened. We are live.
We made it.
We made it.
We did
We
it.
made it. Welcome, everybody. Anybody that's watching. We got the full PDH pod here with honorary PDH pod member bfine,
I'm an
busiest
honorary
man, and Pauper
otter.
Commander.
Whoa, hold on. I thought Lobbit was the honorary member.
When Robert's the
We can have
guest.
two honorary
Yeah.
members.
There's only 4 seats in a pod. What are you doing?
Listen,
Loud-
only one of
Robert's
us is a
not here.
professional mathematician.
Right.
Trust me.
All right, fair enough.
Fair enough. Yeah, so welcome, everybody. Having another Friday night PDH chat. This time we got Liam on board with us. Liam, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing fine. Just fine.
Dave, thanks for rushing home and getting on stream with us. How'd it go today?
The final exam,
Yes.
really bad.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
So the course coordinator sent out the his first draft of the exam on like a Wednesday night, and he
Mhm.
was like, "Give me some feedback. Let me know what you think." And I was really busy that Wednesday for hopefully obvious reasons, and so didn't get to look at it that night. And then Tuesday morning, he was like, "Okay, time's up. This is the final. This is the final draft of the final exam." And like the next day, I looked at it, and it's just like it's like nothing but trick questions or questions that you need to be like, it's not. There are 0 questions on the exam where like knowing the one thing will get you the right answer. Every
Mhm.
single question you have to know the thing, and then you have to know like 3 other tangentially related topics that you're going to bring in from a different part of calculus to like do the thing right. Like
Oh, no.
it took me an hour, and I usually run a 7-to-1 ratio of like how long something should take me versus how long something should take the average student.
Sure.
So like you would expect an average student to finish this in 7 hours, and they had 3.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That sounds rough.
Yeah. So I'm 97% sure we're curving this one. I think the average grade's probably going to be a 32.
Yeah, sure.
And yeah, I was not a good time. It was bad.
Oh,
This
no.
is why I hate math.
That's a great reason to hate math.
Yeah, we had a little pre-show discussion about your hatred for math.
Math is
Yeah.
great.
Math is pretty great.
I never really took like advanced mathematics, but I
thought
did
this was a
I
harem.
did really enjoy physics. I took a little bit of physics and I loved physics. Which is a lot of math, but it's not like
Physics is cool because I don't know. I
it's
hate math.
applicable. I don't know.
You
I
can
always-
see
I
physics
always-
happen.
Yeah, you can like see what's happening with physics.
I always just love being in my classroom and like introducing math into a topic, and the
What's up,
kids like,
Sniff?
"Oh, we have to do math." It's like, yes.
Yes.
Welcome to career and technology class, where everything is the application of what you learn in every other class.
Right.
Congratulations, you need math to build that popsicle stick bridge. I'm
Yep.
not just letting you build a bridge for fun.
Right.
There's gonna be math.
Gotta put
Sorry.
some math behind it, boy. What's up, Bobby Bfine? How you doing tonight?
I am excited for tomorrow.
Yeah, big
So,
time. What's going on tomorrow?
Heck yeah.
Big
we're
old
gonna
tournament day
play
tomorrow.
ignorant.
Yeah, we got a big old tournament tomorrow. So
It's a big tournament tomorrow.
Yeah,
in Philly?
I think all you guys are involved in some way, shape, or form.
in some way. Yeah, we'll
word
all
on
be
the
there.
street is,
It's true.
Brad's playing.
I
don't know
am.
what he's
Figured it
playing.
was my
He's
turn, so-
super secret tech.
Yep.
Liam's gonna be judging, and that Dave guy up there, he's gonna be yakking the whole time. So
It's me.
yakety-yakking.
I'm going to be talking constantly.
So if we keep the rotation going, then next time Brad will be commentating and I'll be playing and Dave will be judging.
Yes.
Yes, I think
I
that's
see
correct.
no way this goes wrong.
I
Okay.
think,
yeah,
I think that's
no-
totally correct.
No
Yep.
problems. Yep.
I'm prepared to judge a tournament.
Are you in the booth this weekend with Mr. Derek?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, Derek and I are
me.
going to crush it.
And Bobby.
And Bobby
And
Bfine.
the Bobby Bfine. Derek's an excellent commentating partner.
I love working alongside Derek. He's
Yeah.
great.
Derek has a good brain. I
It
like
starts at
It's-
4 p.m.
yeah.
Eastern, correct? So by like 5:30 p.m. Eastern, I may be joining you in the booth. I mean, I'll just, however long it takes me to go 04 or 03, whatever, with my super secret spicy brews. Not
Top
really.
4 incoming.
Top 4
Calling it
incoming.
now.
Yep. I'll pull a Mizu. What's up, Scarecrow? Welcome to the show. Yeah, this week, it's been a few weeks since we had one of these discussions, and I thought it was a good time to sort of like talk about all the events we've had and these in-person paper events, these spell table tournaments, all for Pauper Commander. They seem to be happening with more regularity, and I know that I get approached quite often with, I love tournaments or whatever. I want to get into PDH, but I don't know if I want to go to an event because I don't know how to prepare for it. What am I looking at? What's the meta? Yada, yada, yada. So I thought we would just sort of like touch on just exactly that, how to get ready specifically for a Pauper Commander tournament, whether it's in person, whether it's a spell table event like the Sanctuary series, and then just sort of like what to expect. And I love that we have Liam on because we can get sort of the judge's perspective from that as well. Have you ever judged a in-person Pauper Commander event? Or has it just been
Not an
online?
in-person. No,
Okay.
just the online sanctuaries.
Okay.
I have judged like in-person EDH events before, and they'll be similar enough.
Sure.
Ban list and card pool changes, but that's about it. I will say when it comes to competitive meta,
Mhm.
really just bring whatever. I mean, all jokes aside, bring whatever. Jokes not aside, the meta is currently colorless Voltron and Boros spells, so have at
Currently, yep. For a hot minute, it was mono blue, and then
it.
they got wrecked.
So do whatever you want,
Right.
honestly, and you'll probably win.
Now, Bobby, I did want to ask you because
That's math, right?
that is just straight. That's just straight math,
Yeah.
right?
You have a 50-50 odd of taking first place in
Yeah,
the
you win
tournament.
or you
Either
do it.
either happens or it doesn't.
I like those odds, big time.
Yeah.
So we got Liam's judge perspective here. I want to get Bobby's judge perspective as big time Pauper Commander tournament organizer. Do you see? I know your series, your Sanctuary series, have grown in popularity. Are you seeing a lot of newer players, and by extension, are you seeing a lot of like questions from these newer players? Confusion, maybe like, what do you think I should play? Like, what's this meta? How competitive is this? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of things, a bunch of questions, and I see them both in the Sanctuary and like when I went to I went to all the riches to rags except for the first one.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
In Philly. So like what Liam said, play whatever you want, play what you're comfortable with. I think that's the big thing, like comfort and knowing what you're doing, and like not because being able to know and explain what you're doing is like one of the most important things. Because if you don't know what you're doing, you can't keep control of yourself. Then you also have to you're going to be so worried about what you're doing, you like don't even have a clue what your opponents are doing. So
yeah,
play something
It's so hard to pick up a new deck and spike even a 1v1 format tournament, let alone a multiplayer, multi-round event such as Pauper Commander.
Yeah, so I think that's big. As far as what I think it's important to know what the meta game, what popular decks are out there, right? Like to say there's a meta game or you can bet on what's going to show up. I don't think that's true. There's only so many people playing the format right now, and people want to play their brew of the week or whatever. So you can never truly anticipate what's going to show up, but you can know for the most part like how most decks win, how different combos work. I think it's important to know those so that way you're not going in blind.
Yeah, for sure.
And ways to do that are just like look at previous tournament results. I post all the Sanctuary lists on the Sanctuary Mox field. The richest rags lists get posted in all the Discords and stuff. Common Cause lists get posted in all Discords and stuff. So there's no shortage of places to go look at decks that were played in tournaments and how well they did. So just like take, when you're bored sometime, just go look at decks. That's what I do.
Yeah. I do that quite a bit too. And it's one of those weird things where you can, you can pull up the, say, competitive 60 card Pauper metagame, and it'll show you like, oh, this deck is 15% of the meta, this next deck is 8%, and then down the line, and you can sort of like tech your deck to beat those. And that was something we even sort of talked about it on the most recent episode. Like that was something that took me a long time to get over when I wanted to get into competitive Pauper Commander events was, okay, well, my deck has to, I have to tech for Malcolm and Gretchen and Tatyova and this and this and this. And then I found out, like, wow, now I'm just running a pile of stuff that doesn't really do anything if I don't face those decks. So I had to go back to the drawing board. And I think that's where it comes in what you said. And that's what literally, I bet, 10 people have told me so far, because I was sort of struggling with which deck to play tomorrow. And every answer was just play what you're comfortable with, play what you know how to play, and you have a good chance. I mean, I see you nodding your head, Dave. Is that something you agree with?
I I think that that's definitely the most important thing. I think that whatever advice that we dispense and distribute here tonight needs to be prefaced with the kind of the disclaimer that this feels like it's going to be at least a little bit like our Staples talk, where 100 episodes. We had a PDH episode where we talked about staples, and the first thing we said was like, there really aren't staples in PDH. Like, so don't worry about it. But if there were, this is what they would be. And so, like,
Sure.
I want to get that disclaimer out of the way. Uh, there's no like single thing that you're gonna do that's gonna like make you win this tournament. So like, don't worry about it. Just go in, like, play what you think is gonna be entertaining. Play what you're comfortable with. Don't worry about winning so much as having a good time and being
Yeah.
impactful. And then you have a 50-50 shot of winning. It's even money.
Yeah.
Nothing you really do is gonna to affect that.
Yep. Now, how is your? I did kind of want to talk to, because this is tomorrow will be my actual like official first competitive Pauper event that I've played in. Because every other time I've been commentating, whether it was with Dave or Derek or both. Now, Bobby, when you go to an event like the Riches to Rags or that sort of thing, how do you decide on? Is it the same thing when you decide on a deck? You're just like, this is what mood I'm in, or this is what I'm most comfortable with. Like, are you trying to do like metagaming, if you will? Are you trying to like game the system?
I think it's impossible. Well, okay, I won't say impossible. It's really hard to meta game. Like, you're up against 3 other people. You don't know what's gonna show up. And you can just completely call a metagame wrong if people play off the wall stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, no one expected Lorehold Apprentice or Patchwork Automaton. Or, there's so many random like new brews or decks that show up that aren't what you account for.
Mm-hmm.
So to try to like pick a deck that's explicitly trying to prey on 2 decks and then you never get paired against it, that's just like a recipe for a disaster.
Right.
So I wouldn't do it. The closest I ever did something like that was like playing Floodgate at RIW last year. But I thought that deck was good in general anyway. So
yeah.
I usually go in with, if I want to just worry about winning every time, I'd probably just play Gretchen every time.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done that. I played it once in a tournament. So usually it's whatever,
How'd you do in that tournament?
I did win that tournament.
You did win that tournament.
Got him.
So yeah, Gretchen is pretty good, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I like trying new ideas. I don't play as much as I used to, so I kind of want to try whatever new spicy thing I've been working on.
Mm-hmm.
Like 5-color Cycle Storm at the most recent Riches to Rags. So
right.
I always play a deck I think can win. I play it to win. But like that Cycle Storm deck wasn't the most tuned thing ever.
Sure.
I'll never, So I think, but I knew what I was doing. I felt comfortable with it, and I thought I could put up a good chunk of wins with it because people wouldn't have any clue what I was doing.
Right.
So, I was just like playing, whatever it is I like, whatever, I played Abdel, I've played Floodgate, I've played Weavers, which is just like Diet Gretchen.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I've played a different deck every tournament, I think. So
Yeah.
I like spicing it up. Some people play the same thing over and over and over again, and I think that's great too. Because
it's funny that you won a tournament with Gretchen, you play the Cycling Storm deck, but somehow you're still just known for Floodgate.
Well, I mean, I am adamant that Floodgate will win at some point. So
I believe it.
I just need other people to join me in the endeavor. So Floodgate is the best. I don't know if you've seen the art, but that art is awesome. So
Jeff Miracola knows what's good.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, I think playing what you like, playing what you're interested in. If you're just focused on winning, that's fine. You can do that. But if you're like playing a deck that you think is going to win, but you hate playing it, that I don't think,
That's not going to.
That's not what
be
I
a good
would
time.
do.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, Ank is talking about audibling coming out for tomorrow. Oh, great.
Uh-oh. It's going to be on the floodgate list. You watch.
Ank on Floodgate. Look
Yep.
out.
Calling
This
it.
is it. This is Floodgate's moment.
Now, when you played at RIW, Liam, what put you on the deck you were on that, I guess, last year?
That was Falconer Adept, and honestly, I was just looking to have fun. I wasn't really looking to win. I'm not the most competitive person. I'd say I'm more competitive now than I was last year, but
Yeah, sure.
really, when it came to picking RIW, I was just there to have fun and hang out with friends. I picked a deck that was built competitively minded. It was built to win. It was built to do things efficiently. That being said, it was by no means competitive. Made tokens beginning on turn 5.
Right.
It's only as good as you think it is.
Sure. Yeah, and two, I do really understand the concept of play what you like, play what you're going to have fun with. Because if you're unfamiliar with the deck or you go into it not really enjoying the deck, like you got to understand there's 3 other people at that table that have to make decisions as well. Like at some point someone's going to make a decision that completely derails what you're trying to do, what you think your deck is really good at, and where in 1v1 formats it's like cool, I know that when we get to this point in the game or when I play this card my opponent's going to do this and then it'll be their turn and they're going to do this in response and it's just a back and forth. But I mean, how many times has a 4-person pod just sort of like gone sideways according to the plans that you thought you had in place? And I think that's where playing a deck you're comfortable with, it's easier to pick up those pieces when they start to fall apart, if that makes sense.
There's a famous old quote that says, "No plan survives first contact with the enemy."
Yeah.
And in more modern terms, in the words of I think Mike Tyson,
Yeah.
everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah. So like,
Yeah.
the plan, whatever plan you think you're gonna to do, like, it's probably not gonna work. So, and that's why you play something that you're really familiar with,
Yes.
because then when your plan falls out from under you, you still have something to do.
Yeah, you still have
You
the
still
deck you
know
like.
what your deck is about. You
Mm-hmm.
still know what your opponent's decks are about.
Yeah, kind of like what you were saying, Bobby. If you just like, oh, I just want to win, so I'm going to pick up the best combo deck, and then, like Dave was saying, you get punched in the face and your plan falls apart, and you're like, oh crap, now what do I do? How does this deck recover from this? Like that's just, you might as well drop out if you can't recover from that. You know what I'm saying? If you're completely that unfamiliar with it.
Yeah, because you got to know, you got to know how threatening you appear to other people. That's part of knowing the deck, playing a deck. You have to know when you have a shot versus when you don't, and be able to deflect when you're like in a grim spot and you're like, hey, like you got me, guys. I'm worry about someone else now. Like I'm handled.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the other important part that ties into this, choosing something you're comfortable with, is because there's so many other things that you're going to be thinking about and worrying about too. We already talked about other people in their decks. That's in every game, but there's also if this is one of your first tournaments, there's rules that aren't normally at issue in open play games. There's a timer that you maybe haven't worried about before, and there's all these like other things that are going to be running through your mind and distracting you and taking effort to think about. And so if you just got to make sure you have enough space in your brain for everything. So
yeah, and that sort of falls back to play the deck you're comfortable with, that you can almost play on autopilot, or you can play still happily if you're losing with it, because it's easier to deal with those distractions.
Yeah.
Now, Liam, go ahead, Dave.
I wish I'd gotten a lot more experience with Death Rattle on before I showed up to Sanctuary 4 with it. Like, I think that the deck was really threatening in a lot of ways, but I just kept on making really idiot decisions over and over again and dropping otherwise winnable games because of it. And like, I wouldn't have, I won't say I wouldn't have made those mistakes. I feel like I would have been a lot less likely to make those mistakes if I had played the deck more than one time before walking into the tournament.
Right.
Like I thought that, showing up with a rogue deck that no one had seen before was going to be a big advantage, but like that advantage didn't really survive beyond
Getting
people
punched
reading
in the
the
face.
card.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I got punched in the face plenty, and I punched back real good. The problem was I thought it was going to be a big surprise, but then like the people I was playing with, it turns out unfortunately are literate, and so they
Oh,
just read my card, they read my commander, and they're like, "Oh, I know what this deck does," and I was like, "Damn,
damn it. Foiled
Dave, you're
again.
the one who
forgot."
doesn't know how to read. Everyone else has a pretty good grasp
I
on it.
am the one. It turns out I'm the only one who doesn't know how to read. Like when you count on when your opponents count on your opponents being illiterate, it doesn't go well.
That cannot be part of your game plan. Sorry.
Alex too used to playing with the pals who aren't literate. Yes,
See?
this was this was my downfall.
Chat with me. He knows Dax. I mean, come on. We can't be all your opponents all the time. Now, Liam, Bobby mentioned like the timer and the different things that outside of like shuffling and actually playing the game. Like you said, obviously you've judged a handful of these online PDH events, and you said you've judged some EDH stuff in real life. What do you see as like some common problems outside of like just gameplay, like preparation wise, or just not understanding a multiplayer tournament structure?
The biggest thing that I've ever run into is people truthfully not bringing something they're comfortable with. People attempting to metagame a tournament, or people making last minute changes to a deck.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
With the timer, certain archetypes can become slightly more difficult, such as combo or control. They tend to want to drag a game a little bit longer, and that can run into timer issues. You want to be comfortable with your deck. You want to know the play lines. You want to know the patterns. Maybe you have to make one or two swaps right before the tournament, but you should not be making any large changes. And I'm talking 5+ cards.
Right.
You should not be making that large of a change less than a week before the tournament. Like, you want to get your reps in, you want to get your practice in, you want to be able to play the deck well, you want to not be using brain power on, well, is this still in my deck? Or, did I take this out? Like, I was considering it, is it still here? You don't want to be using that brain power. You want to just know what cards you're playing with. And
right, they say
you want to be able to you want to be able to focus all your effort on the gameplay. Part of that also comes from like the science of teaching, where we want to kind of support children in all the ways we can. We want to take stuff out of their brain. We want to take all those. We want to put things into memory to the point that it just becomes natural, so that they're not having to think about it when doing more complex tasks, right? When we're teaching children to multiply, we don't want them to be thinking about adding numbers. We just want them to be able to add the number. And so when it comes to the deck playing, you want to be able to just play the deck. You don't have to think about what cards are still in your deck.
right.
And so just getting that out of your working memory, getting your memory working on the problem at hand, the task at hand, which is the current game state. You need to be comfortable with your deck. It's just facts.
Yeah, and they always say, play to your outs. It's going to be a bad time for you if you're sitting there going, crap, is this still one of my outs?
You can't remember what your outs
are.
are.
Yeah, exactly.
Did I keep this out, or did I sub it out for a new win con?
Right, exactly.
We have some extremely important contributions in the chat room. I'm not sure who's paying attention, but Ryan says managing tilt and taking care of yourself during the tournament, food and water, are among the most valuable skills to increase your win rate in tournaments. And that sounds, I think that's the most valuable skill to increase your enjoyment of tournaments.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's number one. Honestly, super true. Get some water, get some drinks. Ank chimes in to agree with that. Hydration and snacks are key. And then Ank, I think, is bringing up the single most important question, possibly of the year.
Of the whole year.
Bobby, when do we get a sanctuary taco bar?
The chat has spoken.
That's a great question. I will
gotta
look
have
into
a physical location first.
What goes into NFT tacos?
There we go.
We'll see what we can put together.
Taco food tokens.
If I ever get to do PDH Con, that'll be in consideration.
Yeah, and I know
I want a PDH Con.
Sort of related to what you just read off from Ryan there, Dave. Like, even when you're playing a spell table or an online, a digital webcam tournament, don't take for granted that, I'm in my house, I can just go grab a drink whenever I want, or I can go grab a snack whenever I want. Like, you got to have them handy. because you'll forget about that stuff, or it'll take you longer than you expect. Yeah, exactly. I do it all the time on my Saturday streams, and those are casual. I sit down to play, and I've got 2 or 3 drinks right here. I try to eat beforehand, and my drinks are here, so I'm not like, oh, sorry, guy, let me go take a break, let me go get a drink, yada, 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 because that'll mess up your concentration. If you've got the opportunity to, if your play area, if you've got the opportunity to make that like a solitary area where you can have the door closed and create like your own little environment to play in, that's also very helpful, I've noticed too.
Minimize distractions.
Yes, 100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
I was talking to Mizu son, and he had to sit out this go around because he couldn't find someone to watch son, and he was like, I know there's 0 chance he'd allow me to play a whole day of tournament without causing some sort of ruckus. So,
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, you want to minimize distractions. I mean, it's funny, when you're thinking about it's unique to virtual, because in person there's so many distractions because there are other people playing Magic all around you. So it's easier to get distracted in that environment, but you kind of have a different level of distraction at home because you're just used to it. You're like, oh, I'm just at home,
You just take it for granted, yeah.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, it's super easy to get distracted, and I don't know, it's something that just sort of creeps in on you too. Anything, like Ryan says, the mental clutter, minimize that mental clutter. Even like this desk that I'm sitting in front of talking to you guys, this is my play area, and I could look now past the webcam and it's just full of crap. Like, I'm going to have to clean that off before tomorrow's event because I'll notice it and it'll bug me, and it'll just sort of like creep in throughout the day. And that's just the sort of thing you have to think about. Now, Bobby, I know you've done a lot of 60 card tournaments, 1v1 tournaments. What would you say, like, preparation wise, whether it's physical, mental, cards, what have you, comparisons or pros, cons, comparisons and differences between a 1v1 tournament and a multiplayer tournament? Like, when you show up fresh to the event.
There's a lot. So, so 60 card, you're playing best of 3. You get a sideboard, so you can metagame, right? You can build a whole sideboard of 15 cards if you have one abysmal matchup, and make sure it's a less abysmal matchup. And you only have one opponent you're working against. Like, so there's not ever going to be a politics that come into play in 1v1.
Right.
You cannot trust the person you are trying to kill. Like, they're the enemy. So it's a lot more straightforward in 1v1. There's fewer variables you have to worry about. So and this is just a product of multiplayer versus not, but when you play EDH games or Commander, Pauper Commander games, any kind of multiplayer format games, you have 2 more opponents to worry about, which is 2 more opponents of variables. Plus, when you add the social interaction component, which is a whole nother layer on everything else, and the politics and everything goes into it, it's so convoluted. You can't count on anything. You can't, you never know what the pod composition is going to look like. And
right.
You'd be crazy to try to, like, you can't answer everything. You won't win every game. Like, it's crazy to think you will. I mean, maybe you will. Maybe you'll get lucky and it'll happen, and that's awesome. But you can't go in expecting that, oh, I have a, greater than whatever percent likelihood of winning. Like, there are 4 people trying to win. So
50-50.
It's 50-50. Yeah. Yep.
despite what the math we're talking about would have you believe, it is actually not 50-50.
Oh,
so
damn. We were close.
Know, right?
We're close.
So you're not ever likely to win in any of these games. So every game's an uphill battle. Politics can lead to lots of talking, and that's a big stressor when you have a timed round.
And just so people know, most events are 90 minutes. I think the Riches Rags was 100 minutes. Did they push it up that high, or did they shorten it?
It ended up being 90.
Oh, okay.
I think Common Cause did 80 this last time, but
maybe that's what I was thinking of. Yeah,
I think they're going to go back to 90. I'm not sure, but
okay.
But yeah, so like for the most part, they're 90-minute rounds, but there's lots of talking that goes on because there's just more people, and so you got to be mindful of that. and kind of know going in, hey, I'm playing a deck that's going to get hated on a lot, or I'm playing a deck that's going to look scary. So what am I going to say in these types of situations to kind of shift the heat away from me? Or what do I need to say to make someone realize if they're not seeing why this other person's scary, right? So there's playing Magic, that's one part of it, and then there's playing the people, which is a whole nother part of it. And there's only so much prep you can do outside of just like games, but that's where it just comes into understanding what other people are doing, understanding what you're doing, and being comfortable with all of those, because then you can communicate that more effectively, more efficiently, and not waste all this time and clock.
Yeah.
And there's so many. And to that end, familiar yourself with the rules. That's one unique part about multiplayer. There's no official rules governing multiplayer play. There are a handful of different groups have made their own rule sets that are adopted by different organizers and whatnot. I know Liam and I have talked about them at length for the one we use for the Sanctuary. So know what the rules are, kind of know what the consequences are, and that could impact deck building. It can impact decision making. Like, there are real considerations that should be taken into account when you're looking at the rules and how you translate that to what you're bringing, how you're playing, all that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I know a lot of newer players tend to feel overwhelmed by, well, how am I going to learn, there's 4,000 uncommon creatures. How am I going to, understand every single deck that's out there and every single deck that can show up to a tournament? And how am I going to, how am I going to remember their combo lines or their whatever this and that? And it's like, you're not, you don't, you're not going to.
Yeah. Get rid of those delusions.
Right.
I think,
I think you can't remember 4,000 of them, but there aren't 4,000 combo lines in PDH.
True.
And you can, if you're a crazy person and Kylosaur, you can figure them all out by spending a week playtesting with 4 open tabs of Moxfield against all of the popular combo lines and against all the popular commanders.
Yep.
Like, it's doable.
It is doable, for sure. For sure.
Yeah,
Ryan in the chat says CPDH guide, review the meta.
Sure.
Yeah. I think just looking at, you can look at the popular ones, right? Like, and Ghostly Flicker is like an archetype, arguably, right? If you know how Flicker works, you figure out a chunk of decks, right? Like,
yeah,
there's kind of knowing how these different like staple cards or like archetypes work in general, and that helps you solve a lot of decks. You don't have to know, what every you don't have to know the 99 of every single deck or 98 of every single deck. You just have to know generally what they're doing, and then generally what's good against those or how they're trying to win. So Flicker is trying to make infinite mana. Freed from the Real doing the same thing, but needs this thing that taps for multiple mana. All those kind of variations. And once I'm saying combo lines, but the same thing applies for aggro decks, control decks, mid-range decks. There's just certain types of strategies and like common play patterns that they all have.
Yeah.
And identifying those, if I sit down against a commander, odds are good I can figure out generally what they're trying to do based on the first couple of cards they play, or just seeing what the commander is, right? So not every commander works that way, but a good chunk of them you can do some guessing pretty early on. So
yeah, I think just by nature of our format, you can generally a lot of the times just look in your opponent's command zone, and that's what their deck is trying to do.
That only works if you know how to read.
See, that's why I lose a lot. That's why
where they
can't get those dubs.
How they get you.
That is how they get you.
I am quite illiterate.
Damn, Watsy.
That might be the problem.
That is how they get you.
So maybe that's our like tournament prep like advice. Step 1, hooked on Phonics.
Worked
Step
for me.
2, read your opponent's commander.
Hooked on Phonics PDH edition.
This is all I'm just kind of spitballing. I've never tried either of those things, so I don't know whether or not they work. But
I got time for that.
Empirical evidence suggests that they might, so maybe that's worth a try.
It might be worth a try to learn the language, and read it. So yeah, and then two, do you see, Liam, when you're judging an event, or Bobby, when you're at these multiplayer events, do you guys see players that show up like, here's my deck, I got my 100 cards, I'm ready to go, and they literally have like nothing else? Like no dice, no sort of life counter, no like play mat, like they're just like, I'm gonna sit down and play. I see Bobby pointing.
That's me. I do that. No, I haven't played mat.
You're the judge's worst nightmare. You're the one we hover over at conventions.
Mm-hmm. So what's this guy doing?
Yeah. Well, so with multiplayer, it's because really just someone needs a phone. Someone of the four. So like, if someone has a phone, life total is under control. You should bring dice. You should bring tokens. You should bring the game objects you need to play your deck.
Mm-hmm.
Unless your deck doesn't make tokens or counters, in which case,
bingo. Yeah.
I'd be impressed
I
if
would
you
be,
had a deck that
in this day
was
and age,
competitive that didn't make either of those things.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Time to go remove the one token maker from Gretchen to make you impressed. But yeah, so I think, obviously, depending on the deck, have your tokens, have dice. Some, have a phone, bring a battery, an extra charger, portable charger, because someone's going to end up using their phone to track life totals. It may or may not be you. But yeah, just be responsible. If you're borrowing things from other people, give it back, but, just generally be prepared. And that kind of all ties back into know what your deck's doing. Remember to reveal your stickers pregame if you're playing a sticker deck, as Ank said. So, yeah. I feel like
especially, especially when you're doing silly decks like that, stickers or all this extra stuff that your average deck isn't running. You can't expect the venue to have just stickers you can borrow. You can't expect the venue to have these random tokens that no one else plays with. Just absolutely, just be prepared.
Insert shill for infinite tokens here.
Right. Yeah, infinite tokens.
Hashtag
great idea.
Not sponsored.
Hashtag not sponsored yet.
Unless.
Wait a second now. So yeah, there's a ton that goes into all this stuff, and I think it's just, I want it to not be as overwhelming as some people think it might be. Because I hear that, like I said, I hear that from people that want to get it in the format, and they're like, I don't even know where to start to build a deck. There's so many commanders to choose from. And then you go further than that, and like, I'd love to play in a tournament, but I wouldn't even know how to or what deck to bring. What archetype should I bring? Like, I don't think that's even necessarily like a question you should ask yourself. What do you think, Dave? Are you going into a tournament saying, I think aggro is going to be good here, or does that just fall back on the what am I comfortable playing?
I'm muted.
Yep.
I
got him.
Liam, you're safe. It's back to me doing
Yep.
it.
He recursed himself.
Okay. Dodged it for an episode.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I think that I personally have never gone into a tournament thinking to myself, what I'm expecting to see a lot of this type of deck or a lot of this archetype or anything like that. When I go into a competitive event, my goal is I'm not trying to win. Like I expect to have about a 25% chance of winning any given game. So which is not high. Like you're going to lose a lot more games than you win, and I'm okay with that. I've made my peace with it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to impact the game and like have a meaningful effect before I die. And like a couple of years ago for me, I was trying that with combo decks, and when you lose with a combo deck, it feels like you've done nothing. Like
Right.
it feels like I cast a Pilipala and it took a removal spell out of someone's hand, and then I cast a Rhyme Tender and that took a removal out of someone's hand, and then I died. And like it just feels bad. It feels like you did nothing. And so like if I'm going to lose approximately 75% of my games, I want to go down feeling like I really impacted and shaped the game on my way down, which is why I really like control in the competitive scene. That lets me feel like I am in the driver's seat a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't always like in the last event, I wasn't able to make myself win any of the games, but I did have a huge impact on who did win the games.
Sure.
And like prior to the last event, I've sat down with Vohar at a lot of streamed or unstreamed, just casual spell table, not casual, competitive spell table, non-tournament. That's what I'm looking for.
There we go.
I've sat down with Vohar at a lot of non-tournament games and just controlled the table to death very effectively. So like I don't choose those decks because I'm like worried about aggro being super prevalent or I'm worried about something else being super prevalent. It's just that is the archetype where, and we keep on coming back to this over and over again. Those are the play styles that I'm comfortable with in a competitive scene.
Yep.
Ryan is saying that I like decks with agency. I mean, I feel like there is agency to be had in combo decks, but to me it feels like more of a I guess when I say it's more of a dice roll, that's the opposite of agency, isn't it? To me, like, I've been commentating these for a while, and I watched Gator take his Abdel deck into the first Sanctuary and just go completely unstopped and mostly untouched.
Mm-hmm.
And it was wild watching him go, turn 4 Archaeomancer, and everyone's like, okay, this is fine.
That's fine.
Let's not mess with it.
Let's
leave Gator alone.
Let's go to my
and then
turn
Gator
now.
goes turn 5. Abdel also Cloud Shift, and everyone's like, oh no, what happened? Like,
how could this
okay.
have happened to
Like,
me?
Gator just gets to like when Gator plays a combo deck, he has all of the agency, nothing but agency. He just decides that he wins games, and then it happens, and it blows my mind because when I play combo decks, everyone else decides that Dave needs to bite the curb, and then I do, and then it's like I don't know. It's wild. Yeah, control decks make me feel like I have the most agency. I don't know if
that's a really good way to put it. Yeah.
I don't know if like statistics would bear this out, especially in terms of like my own game record. But like I feel like I'm doing the most impactful and relevant and like fun things, interactive, engaging things when I'm on a control list. And that is literally the only aspect of this that I take into account when I make that decision of like
This is trash.
am I gonna what? Trash? Tony's trash?
Yeah,
you're only saying that because he's 0-7.
That's the only reason.
I mean,
listen,
I didn't know
as
that.
a mathematician.
I didn't know that, but no, I'm saying this because it's
when you put it like that.
when you put it like that, no. To me, just the agency means like moving my game objects. I don't care what my opponents are doing. Why do I care what they're doing? If the life total is 0, it doesn't matter what they're doing.
Yeah,
Ink just likes making game objects.
Make Mardu Rough Rider competitive.
I like playing the deck that makes the most permanence at the table. If my playmat is covered in game objects, I'm winning something.
Yep.
Hank, I need to put you in touch with my good friend Derek.
Yes, Derek loves it. Loves it. Gameobjects.deck.
I need the most number of things in play.
That is satisfying.
I mean,
I went through the trouble of sleeving up 100 cards and sleeving up my tokens. Like, I want to see them all.
Better have 100 things.
Yep. Hank confirmed TPI. Hank, when am I, speaking of game objects, when am I going to see you
with a token
piloting Togo?
Ooh.
The most powerful game object maker.
Yep. Literal
He makes
rocks.
Equipment, so it must be good.
There was a guy at Vegas that was playing Togo, and he actually had rocks. Like actual rocks from outside with the words, with the rules written on them. It was fantastic.
Yeah, Joseph in the chat, the turn 3 Malcolm win. I meant to add that to Gators, win with Sanctuary. I'm not gonna go off on a crazy rant this time. Just like
classic.
That's the kind of thing that where like I feel like statistically, when I'm at the helm of a combo deck, I ought to have more agency than empirically, experientially, I have ever had.
Sure.
So yeah, like I feel like there's some people who play combo decks and just win with them, and then I play combo decks and just lose with them, and I don't know what I'm doing differently than Gator on on turn 3 Malcolm, or Gator on turn 5 Abdel, or Bobby on Gretchen winning tournaments. But like I am doing something different, clearly.
Yeah, and you can't. On the other side of that too, you can't look at that because that turn 3 Malcolm win for the championship, like that was pretty popular. That was like the shot heard around the world. You know what I'm saying? Like, and a lot of people remember that, and I don't want people to think, oh, my deck has to beat a turn 3 Malcolm because that's just what wins tournaments. Like that
Your deck should stop a turn 3 Malcolm.
It should be able to. Yes.
Doesn't have to beat it.
Doesn't have to outrun it.
Right. That's
you
what I'm
just
saying.
need
yeah.
Has to has to be able to not just do nothing. Like
right.
Don't just sit and look at it funny.
It needs to do more than watch a turn 3 Malcolm. It
100%. But yeah, the turn 3 Malcolm win is very. I mean, that was an outlier statistically, but you're right. You should be able to at least try to interact, try to throw those game objects across the table at the Malcolm player at some point.
Which is honestly the other reason that I really want to play Control, is because like someday I'm going to square up against a turbo combo deck, and someone's going to drop the Lotus Petal, the Simian Spirit Guide, the Dark Ritual, and they're going to go for it, and they're going to burn 7 cards to try and combo out on turn 2. And I'm just going to catch it with the go for the throat. And they're going to be hell-bent on 1 land with nothing in play, passing the turn. And I'm going to do laps around my house screaming.
Win. That's a win right there.
I've won. That is a game over. Dave gets the ribbon.
Yep.
Give him the cup.
5 swamps in hand. Doing nothing.
It's like that meme of that one idiot is like, biting his metal while sitting in like 7th place. Like champagne. Like that's gonna be me stopping a turn 2 combo. Like I don't care what else happens that game. I will have won the tournament in that moment.
Reminds me of one of my fondest EDH moments in college, where it was player. I was player 4. Player 3 was attempting to cast a turn 1 Soul Ring, and their best friend, who was player 1 across the table, was like, "No, I'm so sick and tired of you getting turn 1 Soul Rings." And we were on like game 6 of the night, like turn 1 Soul Ring every game, and he's just packed in negations turn 1. He's like, I don't even care. He's like, you're just not getting that turn 1 Soul Ring. And player 1 was out on turn 2. And it was a 3-player game for like an hour, but it was just like, I'm just like, you know what? I aspire to that level of pettiness. It's like,
that's good.
That is good.
It's really good.
It's just like I aspire to be that level.
Yep. Oh, that is good. I did want to get into some of the more, I don't know, official sort of stuff. Liam, this is where I wanted you. I'm glad you're on the show. When you have a multiplayer, 4 people at a table, and there's a judge call, is there, as a judge, is there certain like etiquette you prefer? You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, all 4 players can't just be like throwing opinions at you at one time.
No.
So someone calls a judge, and then how do you take it from there? Like, you just try to focus on the one person? Because I know that in the Sanctuary events, they call a judge, but the commentators don't get to sit in on those conversations, obviously.
Right. Yeah, so when it comes to like the in-person events, when it's a 1v1, judges usually will try to get the whole story at the table if they can, unless there's a need to separate the players. When it comes to a 4-player tournament, same kind of deal. Like, we try to keep everyone together, try to create one story, one event with everyone together. If there's an obvious need to separate players, we can do so, but hopefully that's not the case. It's Commander.
Right.
I've not had the privilege of judging PDH in person yet. So when it comes to these Sanctuary tournaments, I really am relying on voice chat.
Yes.
I mean, I get to sit in on the conversation, obviously, but I don't get to see faces. I get to see hands. I get to see board states.
Yeah.
So it can be quite tricky when, part of a judge ruling could come from body language and facial language and facial expressions. So it's definitely a different approach to do it online. I definitely, do a lot of the same strategies vocally, where, you come in, you say hi to the players, you address them as, players, you You ask what's going on, and hopefully one person, ideally the person who called the judge, will start speaking up about what's going on. Because even at that point, if a player calls a judge, they may not have explained to the table why they did so. They may just pause the game, be like, "Hey, stop! I'm going to call a judge." They ping the judge, and everyone's finding out for the first time why they called him.
Oh, I gotcha.
So it can be quite tricky virtual when you're not physically there. There's not a physical presence. I've not had to do anything major yet. Fingers crossed it remains that way.
Well, I'm playing tomorrow, so you never know.
Brad, don't cause problems.
I know, right? I would think too, like in a multiplayer situation, if this is the pod we're playing right here and we're the 4 players and Dave calls a judge about something that happened between Bobby and him, like you and I should probably just stay out of that conversation.
Dave lied.
Unless we're asked questions. We shouldn't just be like, well, I saw this and I saw this and I saw that.
The nice thing about Commander players with a huge asterisk on it, and especially about PDH players without the asterisk, is that everyone's there to have a good time. Everyone understands that there are prizes on the line, and everyone in this situation wants there to be a remedy that everyone is agreeable with.
Yep.
But everyone's there to have a good time in the end. And so I find that judging EDH tournaments and PDH tournaments to be a lot more enjoyable than main events, because yes, there's still prizes, but everyone's not at each other's throats from the moment they sit at the table.
Yeah.
And like you said, people tend to have basic etiquette of not speaking over each other and waiting for one person to finish before adding in, and only pitching in if they are asked to or feel the need to clarify something. Like the judge is entirely misunderstanding what's going on. I need to clarify something real quick. Versus, I feel like the judge isn't listening to me. I need to step in. Like those are two different things.
Yeah, for sure.
Of attitudes. Overall, though, it's pretty positive. I would say that I'm thankful for not having many issues so far.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it can be awkward at times where you and one other player are not involved whatsoever in the situation that caused the judge to come over, and you're just like hanging out, like, what do we do now? And you want to feel like you want to help, but the best thing you can do is just like let the judge.
Yeah, I mean, it could be as simple as combat has happened, we've moved to main phase 2, but player A forgot to remove one of the creatures that died from the battlefield to the graveyard, and player D noticed 30 seconds later, and they're not trying to get their opponent disqualified, they just want to judge. And they're not telling player B and C, and player B and C are like, what's going on over there? Like, player D's going for player A's throat. It's like, no.
Yep.
Player D just wants to make sure that combat is resolved appropriately. And
I think that's one thing too. So I think one thing in Commander formats, Pauper Commander, regular Commander, maybe not everyone is coming from like participating in competitive tournaments before 1v1. Calling a judge is not a bad thing.
It is not at all.
No, please call us.
You should call them. You don't need to call them for everything, but always feel free to call them if like you're uncertain about something. If you just want to clarify, you get the time back.
One of the biggest things that I always mention whenever I judge an SCG con, because you get a lot of new players there, is if you think you should call a judge, call a judge.
Yes.
Players don't nearly call us enough. Honestly, I have run whole pre-release events at SCG Con where the only judge calls were during deck building. Like, now granted, this tends to be on Sunday when these people have done 3 of these events already, but like I've run whole events where people only call a judge during deck building, if that. Like, people don't call us nearly enough, right? And if you feel the need, just do so. At any event you're at, call the judge. That's what they're there for. They're literally being paid for you to call them over.
Yeah,
They would love nothing more than to stop circling the room and answer a question about Magic. Right. I promise.
And with it being a multiplayer game too, you can run into those situations where something happens and you're like, oh wait, I need to like back that up. I need to call a judge, and one of the other players is like, oh, we're getting short on time. It's fine. Just go ahead. Like, don't
Yeah, like you get the time back.
You get the time back. Just call the judge.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if it's a ruling that's like dealing with some of your permanents or a spell that you control. Like,
Right.
if like you're welcome to believe your opponents. Like, even tell them like, hey, I believe you. Like, I just want a rules expert to confirm.
Mhm.
And likely you call the judge over, and the judge is like, hell yeah, that's how that works.
Yeah.
Here's a 2-minute extension.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
it's
unbiased opinion, so
yeah,
it's perfect.
It's always worth it to call the judge.
Yeah.
Like Bobby said, you don't have to call them about everything. Like that, hey judge, I was moving this die from the side of the field onto the creature that enters with 2 counters, and I dropped it and it hit a 3, but then I picked it back up and moved it 2. Like, yeah, okay, we don't need to be called for that.
We got
right?
it, buddy.
You dropped
We got
a die. Oh my goodness.
Right.
But like, if there's a rules clarification or like the infamous, hey judge, I shuffled my hand into my deck.
Oops.
Good luck, buddy.
Sorry for you.
Yeah, so even if it's just that, hey, maybe there's a remedy, but I doubt there is. Like, call us. That's what we're here for. We're the experts.
And a lot of times too, I've seen it happen. I can't remember where I was or what I was watching, or maybe even playing it. I don't know, but I've seen it happen to where a new-ish player to PDH lost. It came down to, obviously, it was like player 1 and player 3. The newish player was player 3. The person that won the game was player 1, but they won by a combo that player 3 wasn't familiar with. They asked a judge, like, hey, is this correct? Did I actually lose here? Because I'm not seeing the mat. And the judge sort of like, helped them understand what the play pattern was, where otherwise he may not have.
Yeah, and that gets tricky. Like, if you're in game, the judge can't provide strategic advice. So like,
Correct.
I'm not allowed to explain the combo.
Like, should I mulligan this, Liam? Like, come over here. Like, look at these.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't ask you that.
Like,
huh?
if player 1 and if player 3 calls me over and says, hey, does player 1 win the game? And then player 1 fails to explain the combo, like, I can't confirm or deny. Like, I have to wait for player 1 to explain the combo before I'm allowed to confirm or deny. I'm not allowed to explain any part of it, whether it's a part of the whole thing, like, at all.
Right.
Like, I'm allowed to confirm or deny, and typically when a player's explaining a combo, if they hit a part that's wrong, I'll stop them. And be like, nope, that's not a legal game action.
Okay. That's good to know.
I won't tell them why. I just,
Sure.
Nope, that's not a legal game action. Like you need to make a different choice. And it's this fine line of what am I allowed to say and what am I not allowed to say, and it gets tricky sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's part of being a judge is knowing where that line is. So.
And I think the other thing to, we talked about everyone wants to have fun. Everyone, is there to enjoy themselves. But at the same time, everyone's also trying to win. So,
sure. Yeah.
If you ever feel like they're pressuring you to not call a judge or whatever, or, maybe it's because they want to try to, make sure they get the result that's better for them.
That's what I was saying. Yep.
If the person is if your opponent is ever trying to get you to not call a judge, call the judge over immediately.
Definitely call the judge.
Call 2 judges if they're available.
Call all of the judges.
Call all of the judges. Yep.
Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself being a player in the game, Liam, and like forcing yourself to not go into judge mode when something comes up? Is that hard to do? Like to flip that switch, or to not flip the switch?
Yes
I guess?
and no. It depends. It depends on the scenario. If I'm just like playing Commander at FNM and talking to newer people or even experienced players, and hey, we look this up at colleges. Like, I'd be like, hey, I'm a judge. Like, I can answer this question. Like, do you want me to answer the question? Typically at casual FNM, they're like, yeah, absolutely, answer the question. And the reason I'm able to have that rapport built is because I've also made judge calls that were 100% not in my favor. Right. Like these people, I mean, they know who I am. They know I'm a judge, but it's also maybe it's the new player who doesn't know, but it is 100% like I've explained something that was 100% not in my favor in game. So I've built this kind of rapport in my 2 local scenes that people can ask me questions and they'll know I'll give them a straight answer. If I'm playing at something like an SCG, 100% not saying I'm a judge. I will call a judge over. It gets really tricky when the judge I call over is my friend, and they're just like, "Why are you calling us over? You can answer this question." I'm like, I know. and I understand I'm in the casual EDH zone, but I'm not answering the question while you're here. Like,
Right.
you know,
No,
I'm
sure,
I'm
sure.
I'm not putting myself in that position because I work for SCG so often. I don't want these players to remember me as the judge who cheated them in a command zone or whatever. Like, I'm not trying to get that image. It's very much the, I am a player. Especially so if I'm playing in a competitive event at SCG. I am 100% a player. I'm not a judge.
Mhm.
I know nothing about the rules. I will call a judge over. I've called judges over during deck building, be like, "Hey, judge, does this work the way I think it does?" And then they'll look at me like, "It looks the way it thinks it does." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I'm
No, just
just
making sure.
getting a second
Just
opinion.
wanted to hear
Just
you say it out loud.
getting a second opinion. Getting the judge of the event to say so."
Yep.
But yeah, it entirely depends on the setting. If it's competitive, if there's prizes, I will call the judge over. I am not a judge at the moment. I know nothing about the rules. I am bad at Magic. If it's a casual setting, I'm still bad at Magic, but at least I know the rules.
Right.
Usually, land count is definitely an issue.
Yeah.
You're allowed to play 3 lands in a turn, right?
Sure. I think so.
2 explores.
Two
Two,
explores. Yep.
two. Okay, two. Gotcha.
Yep. I know there was a couple more things I wanted to touch on before we got out of here. There was one that just sort of like popped into my head, and I always think of Dave in these examples because you play a lot of, maybe not necessarily competitively, but in a lot of like the Saturday streams or casual streams or high power streams, whatever you want to call them. You play a lot of commanders that have a lot of stuff going on. Your Gorax list, your Mono Red 40k Warhammer, what's his name? Noise Marine, your Noise Marine list. And it's
This
always
quiet
like,
offense, Slanesh.
and I've said it before too, like those types of decks, if anybody else was playing them, even in a casual-ish type stream, I would ask them where they're at on their storm count or where they're at in their how many creatures died this turn, what's your mana reduction, like just so I can keep track of it. Like you're one of the few players that I'm just like, okay, he's got it. Like I know he's keeping track of it. He can't not keep track of it. Like that's just what he does. And that's okay too when you're in a competitive pod to ask someone like or keep track of it yourself too, like the storm count or understand that a Hollow Marauder cares about creatures that died this turn, so I want to keep track of that in case there's a mana discrepancy later on in the game. Is that something you find comes up a lot, Dave? Like, have you seen that in your commentating or even in some of the games you've played, some of the competitive events?
So one of the things that I have to like be very mindful of is making that explicit because like I think I've played with you enough that I am very carefully tracking everything in my head at all times.
Yep.
And so when I say, and then I cast Death Rattle Oni for 3, like you're not going to be like, wait, why is it 3? Do the math for me. You're going to be like, Dave's on it.
He's
Good,
got it.
it's
Yep.
3.
take
Nailed it.
Take it over.
So
Yep.
like sometimes I get into that mode where I'm just like, people trust me to track things accurately because I'm just always doing that all the time for everything without ever stopping.
Right.
But then I'll get to tournaments sometimes and I'll be playing against people who don't know me or with whom I don't have that reputation, and like sometimes I'll just slip into that, like then I cast Death Rattle for 1 pass turn, and I won't really explain it, and then I'll sort of catch myself later and be like, wait, do I need to go back and like tell them why it's 1? Like, do they trust me, or they get like what's the protocol here? How do I go back and they haven't, like no one accused me of cheating
Right.
by casting this 5/4 flash creature for 1 mana. So like, were they also paying close attention and knew it's 1, or like are they just trusting me that I was keeping track? Like if I play it for 1 next turn, are they going to be like, yeah, okay, whatever? Like, so
Right.
like part of me like there's a tiny voice in my head that's just like, what can I get away with? And then it's like, no, explain your shit, Dave.
Yeah.
And like I'll have to try to force that to become more of a habit. And like I do this kind of, the other thing that I think this is self-criticism at this point. It's not something that I like I'm saying that I do this and I'm proud of it.
Mhm.
I'm saying I do this and I'm like, I know that this is a bad thing that I do and I need to stop. Is like, I see people on streams a lot. They'll go, I cast Tormenting Voice.
Mm-hmm.
As an additional cost, I'll discard 1 and I'll draw 2. And they'll like narrate the whole thing. Or they'll be like, I cast, Reassembling Specimen. I can it's a 1/1 right now, but when it goes to my graveyard, I can pay 3 mana and put it back into play.
Right.
And like every time that happens, I'm like, yes, I know what the card does. You don't have to tell me. Like, I can't read, but I know the picture. I know how it works. Like, you don't like stop talking. Let's go.
Yeah.
And then like every time I catch myself thinking that, I'm like, no, Dave, that's rude. Like, you need to be doing that too. You can't just say, and then I cast acceptable losses and just expect people to know what that means.
Right.
Like, you need to tell them what your cards do because you play with esoteric horse shit. And like, not everyone can
That sounds
read
like
your
an unset
your
card.
bent. Yeah, it should be. Not everyone can
unglued
read your
specifically?
bent
Yep.
thing and like click on it. Like, so that's something that both of those things are things that I'm trying to get better at. I'm trying to get better at like when I have been tracking something in my head the whole time and then I announce, I cast Noise Marine, it deals 12 to your face. Like, I'm trying to get better at, making it clear where that number 12 is coming from and how I
Right.
got that,
Right.
all that.
Just
And I'm
made
trying
it
to
up.
get better at, I cast the card named Astrolabe, which is different than Alchem's Astrolabe.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll be like, and here's what that does. So that I'm not, trying to surprise anyone or trying to trick anyone. Because
Yeah.
like I'm genuinely not trying to like do this possuming thing where I, play a card and then don't explain it and hope no one reads it because then the threat assessment will go off. I play this esoteric horse shit and I just assume that other people know what it does and I pass my turn because I want to like move it along.
Yeah.
And like that's always a mistake, I think.
Yeah. And it's
So-
totally fine to ask your opponent, like, wait, why was that? Why was that 1
Right.
mana? What is that card?
Like,
Like, especially if you're playing on spell table where the webcams go out of focus, spell table's terrible at reading cards, sometimes identifying cards. Like, it is completely fine to ask, like, what is that card you just cast and why was it, whatever, why was it this way? Why did they take 15
I make
to the face?
that mistake, please call me on it every time. I want to be better at that. And I got many years of habit playing like almost exclusively with people who have encyclopedic knowledge of cards.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I fell into this bad habit of not explaining cards and not tracking things out loud. But it is a bad habit and it's not something that I should avoid. So if you're in the tournament,
A minute ago, you said you cast the spell Astrolabe, but I'm not entirely sure what that does, and I'd like to know what that does before I move to combat.
sure. Perfect.
What does it do?
It's a 3 mana artifact. You can pay 1 mana, tap, and sacrifice 2 mana of any color, and then draw a card during the next upkeep.
Old school, baby.
I'll allow it.
All right.
Slow
So I
cantrips.
kinda-
Draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep.
Oh,
Man, that's
yeah.
a line of text.
Oh, yeah.
That's old.
From
That's older.
alliances.
Yeah, buddy.
They should honestly bring that back with all the rioters they've been doing of like disability triggers once a turn.
Mhm.
They should bring that line of text back.
Heck
make
yeah.
the cantrips draw at the next upkeep. Don't make them draw
Yeah.
now. Make them draw
Absolutely
later.
not. It's already easy enough to forget it, and then you need to add it for more. I will.
should
I don't know
God,
how
that is
demands.
that is a really good point, Bobby. If you've got ephemerate or rebound or whatever triggers on your upkeep,
Mhm.
you better find a way to keep track of them in a multiplayer game because
Okay,
you will
but-
forget.
Yeah.
My feedback there is that is a whole turn cycle away versus the line of text of at the beginning of the next upkeep
Oh yeah, for
is
sure.
your opponent's turn. Like
Yeah, yeah, for
Arcane
sure.
Denial. People remember Arcane Denial all the time.
Right.
Do they?
Right.
I've seen plenty of people miss Arcane Denial. So
I don't think I've ever missed Arcane Denial.
someone pull up the tape of Liam
Pull up the
missing
tape.
Arcane Denial trigger.
Go for it.
What
Good
were you-
luck. I
were
don't
we
think
saying
I've ever
about-
missed Arcane Denial. Arcane Denial to me is a draw spell. It's not a counter spell.
That's
It's a
right.
draw
Oh,
spell.
it's probably because you never play anything that needs countered. That's why. Got it. Okay.
That's true. That's true. I don't. I'm always
Um,
playing like
Got 'em.
Everyone-
Juggernaut and Ornithopter.
Yep.
That
Everyone-
needs countered.
Everyone's sitting there with Arcane Denials in the hand, and Liam's like, I cast Abzan Falcon, and they're like, Okay.
All right. Cool.
I'm never gonna get to draw anything off this counter. so
Resolves.
fine.
Resolves.
I want to push back a little bit on your point, Dave. Just a little bit. I don't.
Sure.
I guess I'm not like freely offering up information about I'll announce what my card does. I won't hide it. I'll answer if people ask. but like I don't know,
I'll
especially
point
on
out.
spell table, right? You can literally look up the card and read what it does. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like, being sweatier, whatever. But like that's where I'm like, in the mode where I'm trying to win. I assume people know what I'm doing because I have a good idea of what they're doing, which is, varies based on, the people you're playing with. So you can't always count on that. But, often, if people miss a critical moment to interact, that I'm not always aiming to do that, right? Like I'm not acting in bad faith, but if they do that because they're unfamiliar with it, they should have taken the time to ask when it was on the stack before we were at a point where, it's in play and able to be activated or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think,
So
And
I have been the kid that lost tournaments to that in the past, and I made a conscious decision like 20 years ago to never be the guy that like takes advantage of that. Like if someone like and this makes me a genuinely a terrible competitive player, but if someone comes to me and goes, I misunderstood this, can we rewind a couple steps so I can go back and interact differently? I'll be like, yes, absolutely, you should do that.
sure.
yeah, I think
Like
it all just
that's
depends on context too, right? Like,
Yeah, and
yeah.
I think the point I was getting to was like, if we're playing in a game and I'm like, wait a second, Bobby, why did that Hollow Marauder cost 1 and not 3? You know what I mean? Like my math said
yeah.
3, your math said 6 or whatever. Like just those sort of differences where it's something drastically large.
Yeah, and I think to that point, I don't want to be deceptive with it, right? I'm not
Right.
like trying to rush through things because I'm trying to sneak one by. I'm like I'm announcing a thing. I'm letting priority go through people. If they have questions, they should ask then. And that's one of the main points. Like if you ever don't know what's going on, ask. Like Ryan mentioned it earlier, communication.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the benefit of other players also not wanting to lose to that one person. So
Right.
talk to them.
Yeah.
They may be a more useful resource than the person who is trying to win at the moment. So,
Because you got to figure too, you may be overwhelmed with this decision tree of 3 opponents coming at you and you're trying to figure out what to do. Well, everybody at the table's like that as well. So everybody else has this whole thing going on as well. So it's easier for them, or it's easy for them to get distracted just like it is for you.
yeah. So like I don't know. I mean I can think of times where it all depends on when they're trying to interact. When if they're like, okay, I want to interact at this point. If I start talking to them like, here's what I'm going to do, and then they're like, okay, I want to stop here. That's fine. If they're like, hey, I didn't realize that happened. I want to respond to that effect, and if nothing else has happened, we're probably good to go. Like it all just depends. But like there have been some times where like I can think of examples where I've like used Stone Cedar Hierophant and Oboro Breeze Caller, which are two weird cards, and I was able to combo with them. But because I knew they were weird, and I also wasn't the most sure myself that I was doing it right, I started going through the loop step by step rather than announcing it was a loop. And then once I made sure it was a loop, I was like, okay, I've now generated like some mana along the way. I'm going to keep doing this. We can start from here if you want to interact, but I've already made this mana. So part of that, again, was my own making sure I'm doing this right because it was
Sure.
a weird line. But so yeah, there's like all these things like just ask questions, read cards, learn how to read.
Yeah, from
These are
now
all
until
important
tomorrow, I
things.
have to learn how to read somehow. Like that's crash course.
Yeah.
What's with these personal attacks?
I know it's crazy.
I mean, I haven't made fun of Brad yet, so Brad's safe for now.
For now.
Brad
Brad can
Brad
do
is
me
the
wrong.
best of us. It's very difficult to make fun of him.
I'll take that. I don't know how I earned it, but I'll take it. So yeah, just I don't know, just be cool at a table. You know what I mean? Don't be like aggressive
There's a difference
and
between being that guy.
confrontational.
Yeah, there's a difference
Don't
between
be
being
that
that guy and
Yeah.
being competitive. So don't be that guy.
100%. Yep. Yeah, like one of you three, I might have been Liam. I don't know. One of you three said it kind of at the beginning of the show. Like, even though it is competitive, even though there are stakes on the line at these PDH events, it's still, by nature of the community, by nature of the format, it's still meant to be just this fun, interactive, like gaming environment.
Yeah, you want to have fun. You don't want to like. don't let things get the best of you in the moment. They can be losing can be frustrating. I hate losing, but you're gonna
I love
statistically, yeah. This is exhibit 9084 why Alk is not the best competitive player, but
the first 8,000 are not being able to read.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, like the idea, whatever happens in one game is, that game's over once it's over.
Yeah.
I've seen people get worked up in post game conversations. I've seen people get worked up, in game. Just, at the end of the day, people make decisions. You can disagree with them, but they happen. Move on. It was 1 90-minute game. You have plenty more to play.
Yep.
You have, it's a game.
And whether
you're
you
not
won
win every time.
whether you won or lost that first 90-minute game, you're going to need a few minutes to like decompress and get ready for the next game. There's no sense in being upset about it, or what if this or what if that, or if I only did this better, yada yada yada.
And don't dwell on it with other people.
Yeah, that's a big one.
One, get it out of your brain, but also don't start taking stuff out on other people well after the fact, who were involved in that game, right?
Yeah.
Like
Then you start getting USC minors.
Yeah. Well, and you just, that's becoming that guy, and you become the person no one wants to play with, and you're not.
Yeah.
Be cool. Like, this is a social game.
Right.
There are social consequences of not being cool. So
yeah.
be cool. It's just that easy.
Ryan,
just be cool.
Be chill.
Ryan, an hour ago at this point, his little like, here's the best advice blurb. We had two parts. We focused really heavily on the, make sure you're fed and hydrated and well taken care of and minimize your distractions. Like, prepare your space first. But like the other part of his original message was like, manage your tilt. And like that's everything Bobby's talking about right now.
Yep.
Like
that did kind of get buried, but that's absolutely correct.
It's what he said, and it's completely accurate. Like you're gonna take some bad beats.
That's
you're gonna be playing a combo deck, and people are gonna tell you to bite the curb, and you're gonna do it. And that's it.
And other people will mess up. You'll mess up. There'll be plenty of messing up. I can. I mean, I don't know how many times I'm like, I don't know why that person did that, but I sure wish they didn't. But it is what it is, right?
Now I'm getting called out. Now he's calling me out.
We got there. We got there eventually.
But you're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. To think anyone is like, if there's ever a perfect game of Magic that happens, I will.
I'd love to see it. Yeah.
So, it just doesn't happen. So,
well, that's the fun thing about commentating is you can question every decision.
Yeah, it's being a commentator is awesome because you just get to criticize and
just
no one
constantly
gets to judge you. Everyone else is wrong,
and it's so one side. Like no one gets to criticize me.
Nope, 100%.
I criticize everyone else. I'm just a font of endless disapproval that is above reproach. It's perfect.
Ink definitely doesn't know anything about messing up. Don't let him fool you.
No, he's a perfect player.
I don't believe that one for a second. I've seen that men play games. I don't think
that's his psychological
go watch any
warfare
or anything.
Yeah.
Don't, especially not the finals last time. Don't do it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Same. Sorry, Ink. But yeah. Be cool.
Yeah.
End of the day.
Just be cool. Yeah, because it's not going to happen.
Cool.
I mean, we've seen events happen where the winner of the event went 4-0 on the day or 5-0 on the day or what have you, and that happens. It's rare, but it happens. But we've said it time and time again tonight. You're going to lose the majority of games you play. Even when we were talking about the metagame, Ryan mentioned the cpdh.guide. Like you look on there, many of the top tier decks have winning percentages in the teens or low 20s. Like that's good for a deck. Like don't expect your whatever Simic deck you're playing to have a 60% win rate, an 80% win rate. Like that might happen in 1v1 formats. It's not going to happen in something like this. And I think too, one thing I struggled with was playing decks like that in 60 card Pauper, 1v1, in the leagues, in the challenges, what have you, and playing decks that were top tier, and they had a 60+% win rate, and it was easy to just steamroll people. You can't bring that mentality into multiplayer because it doesn't happen. It just doesn't. I mean, you can play a deck that has the potential to steamroll people, but you'll do that like 10% of the time, 20% of the time, maybe. And even then, you're probably steamrolling one player, not all three.
Yeah.
It's a different mentality for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, just be cool. I think that's the theme of the night.
Be cool. Be ready to lose.
Yeah, be ready to lose. Be ready to have fun, honestly.
Bring a deck that you're going to be really comfortable playing
Mhm.
while losing.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. Yep.
And call the judge.
Yes. Do not be afraid to call the judge. I know if you're playing in a sanctuary event put on by Mr. Bobby bfine, he's generally available for players if something comes up. He's always
I've been answering
around.
DMs all day.
Yeah, answering
about
DMs all
various
day.
things,
Sometimes he's in the
so.
commentating booth, like he's running the whole. It's not like he just hits start and I'll see you later. I'll see you in 6 hours. Like he's involved
I
the whole
wish
time.
I
So
could do that.
I
That would
know,
be
right?
awesome. If you find a way to do that, hit me up.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
he's saving up all his hit start and then not be involved. He's saving all that for PalsCon so that he can hit start and then play in PalsCon.
yeah.
Yeah.
See, I like it.
That's
I like it.
There you go.
yeah.
Yep.
It's coming. It's
Yep.
just not this event.
Yeah. So if if anybody's out there watching this, if you're going to show up to a sanctuary event or a common cause event, or heaven forbid, if we ever have a PDH pod tournament of some sort, just be prepared. Spell table's a different mindset. Be prepared for that environment. Same thing with paper events. If you've never been to one before, just go ahead.
That reminds me. If you're using Moxfield, so this is unique to virtual platforms, know how to use the platform. Get
Oh,
comfortable
God,
with
yes.
it too.
Yeah.
This is there's tapping and doing things with paper cards and knowing how they interact. Know how to use the platform in the proper way. So know how to scry, know how to search, know how to shuffle, put things on bottom. Look, show everyone the top 5 or just look at the top 1 just for yourself. Know how all of that works.
Yeah,
so you're not
the
spending that much
Moxfield
more time
the
figuring it
Moxfield
out.
interface isn't the easiest thing to get on with, but once you realize that like you were just saying, this button reveals cards and this button lets me scry, and how do I just drag cards off my library to reveal them? Like there are certain ways you can go about it that just makes the whole thing easier.
Yeah.
And figure out a good OBS virtual camera setup for that, because a lot of times, like I've done it a couple times, and my opponents, and it'll be like in a casual stream or what have you, and my opponents will be like, we can see the top half of your hand. We can see the mana value in your hand. Like make sure the important stuff is covered up with your overlays and your different scenes and whatnot. So it takes some finagling, takes some work, but once you get there, you can just set it and forget it, and that's how you just play your Moxfield decks.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's definitely a big one. That's a good one to get brought up. I didn't even think about that. And most events, most webcam-friendly events are now allowing Moxfield. So
For the time being,
we
will see
time
how that works out.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and if you're playing webcam in paper, try to be as transparent as possible. Have your hand visible, not your hands necessarily, but your hand of cards visible. Yeah, that's fine too. Have those visible. Don't be shady. Just be cool. I don't really know what else shady stuff people can do on webcam magic, but don't do it. If you think it's shady, don't do it.
Liam, is there anything as a judge you wish, other than calling you more, players would do more often, or that you want to see more people do?
Or like if you see something through the event, you should have you're like, oh, I should have brought that up in the player meeting, yada yada yada. Anything like that?
Taking their time. I know you only have 90 minutes, and I say only 90. Like it isn't that much time for a Commander game.
Right.
But the largest number of mistakes that I see are when players make stupid mistakes because they're rushing.
Again with the call outs. What's going on here?
Take your time. There are very easy things to miss that can cost you certain penalties. Like, I mean, a warning is nothing, but a turn skip or a game loss that are very easy to just not do in the first place. I understand it's the heat of the moment. It's the tournament. It is, and tournament play can be very difficult. But just taking that one extra second to make sure everything's in the right place. Yeah.
I mean, because how many obviously I've never done it in a competitive setting, but like how many times are you playing a casual game and you go to start your turn, and Abby will be like, "Well, oh, I'm not done yet. Like I didn't say pass. Like you just you just decided to start your turn for some reason. Like that just happens."
It's not even that. It's not even that. It really is just the an extra permanent was left on the field after a board wipe, or you were doing a search and shuffle effect and you shuffled your hand away. Like these things happen so often because the player is just caught up in the moment of what the current effect is, and it's take the time, make sure everything's resolved, then move on.
Yeah, and that goes into also, when you're in a 1v1 game and it's like, me and Bobby are playing against each other and he does something, then I have priority. And then he has priority, and back and forth and back and forth. With multiplayer, you got to get used to the fact that it's going to go around the table and everyone has a chance to react.
And you don't need to be like a rule shark or a priority shark and be like, you think, oh, they've got priority, they have to answer before I do. Like,
right.
I mean, yes, technically, but like you don't have to handhold everyone through the process.
Right.
Hopefully, but just making sure you don't blot out your choice out of turn because it could affect others.
Exactly.
Give them more information.
Yep.
Stuff like that.
Yep. Pretty simple. Like it sounds simple, but it's stuff that everyone has messed up before. It's easy to mess up.
You have no idea.
Yeah. So it just happens, and don't just be cool. Like we said, don't beat yourself up when you will misplay cards. You will misread cards. Like don't beat yourself up over it. If it loses you the game, if it loses you round one, well then round one didn't happen when round two starts. Like that's just how you have to look at it. It's a completely fresh pod. Like you just got to get at it.
Everyone in this pod lost. Right. So everyone's on the same page you are.
Exactly. They probably all misplayed, or none of them can read. Who knows what it is?
Oh, it's just a pot of Alex. Got it.
That's terrifying.
No, the pot is Alk, Dax, Sniff, and who else can't read?
I struggle with that. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Alk pod. Alk, Brad, Dax, Sniff. That's the pod.
That's it. And it's always almost always my own cards that I can't read. Like I could tell you every card that Dave's played and what his commander does, but like I'm gonna cast a creature on your turn. I can't do that. Oh, it's frustrating.
You can if it has flash.
That's true, and it better.
What if it's named Death Rattle Oni?
What if it is?
Cast it for one on other people's turns.
Tony Baloney. All right. What do you think? We're approaching 2 hours. You want to give some final thoughts if you got them, and then we'll get on out of here? What do you got,
If you
Bobby?
haven't signed up and you want to play, you have a little under 3 hours to do so. If you're not going to play, come check it out and watch tomorrow. We'll be streaming it all day. It starts at 4 p.m. It'll be a good fun time.
And that's you're streaming it on Twitch, correct?
Yeah, I'll be on Twitch. I'll post the link everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
PDH pod related, Sanctuary related, anywhere PDH related.
And this one's starting later than normal, or are they all going to be this late going forward?
Eastern. Nah, so this one's starting a little later than normal. I'm trying to move it around time zones to make it more accommodating for various people along the way. So
sure.
Later start. It should be good. Should be fun. Should have some faces that we don't normally get to see because of the time zones and difference. So it should be cool.
Yeah,
so I'm looking forward to it.
Good time. What do you got, Dave? What do you want to leave us with?
Play the deck you're comfortable with. I guess the ultimate most important piece of advice is whatever you think is going to go wrong, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
If you're choosing not to play in this tournament because you don't think you have enough experience, you don't think you're ready, you're anxious about something, do it.
Yeah.
Like just play in the tournament. It's whatever you're anxious about, like might happen. You might lose all your games, you might misunderstand something, you might misplay. Guaranteed. All of those things are going to happen, and it's still going to be a really good time, and you're still going to be really glad that it happened.
Yeah.
So just do it. Go for it. Like whatever you think is going to go wrong, it will, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
Yep. Nothing's going to be perfect about it.
Yeah. You should do it anyway. It's gonna be super fun.
Would you say you're going to get punched in the face, and those plans are going to go out the window, and
Yeah.
you got to figure it out from there. What do you got, Liam? What do you want to tell the fine folks out there? Exactly, Sniff. It is just a card game.
All I've got to say is brew a deck and play a game.
That sounds familiar.
Wow, stealing.
I get that
Thunder.
reference.
I hope everybody gets it by now. Oh, awesome. Looks like we still got some folks in the chat. I appreciate everybody hanging out. This video, I did record it, so this is going to go up on the Sanctuary YouTube. Is that what you said, Bobby?
Yep.
Just kind of like permanent reference if anyone just wants to skim through it or listen to it for the first time, or again and again and again. Whatever. So I think we're going to get on out of here. Sniff, if you're out there, thanks for hanging out. And Kylosaur, I know Ryan took off, Scarecrow took off, but yeah, if you're out there, thanks for hanging out. Liam, Dave, Bobby, thanks for joining me on a Friday night. We'll have to do it again. I think we're averaging like one every 5 or 6 weeks, so we'll have to come up with a topic for the next one by then. But I'm ready to get on out of here.
How to win a PDH.
That's the next one. How to win. How to not misplay. And
You need a
Brad's
very
gonna
different
showcase
crowd
that.
for that one.
yeah.
Yeah,
no,
we'll need to
Brad's
bring
about to win. Brad's
Oh.
we'll need
winning.
a Ryan and a Gator and an Ankylosaur.
Yeah,
Right.
and a mini gator.
Yeah.
So we're just kicking you guys off. It was nice seeing you.
Yeah, that's
new,
it.
Bye.
New PDH pod just dropped.
Yeah. All right. Well, have a
It's
good night,
true.
everybody. See you later.
Cheers.
Peace.
Bye.
Streaming has stopped. Ooh.